Good day, everyone. Today, we will be discussing three among the six subtopics of the nature of administrative work. First topic will be the leadership effectiveness, to be discussed by Loreno Alagia, Sky Onza, Jocelyn Aguinaldo, and Jean Deza. Second topic will be the contingency leadership models, to be discussed by yours truly Maricel Macabangun together with Maria Victoria Santiago. And the last one will be on the Fiedler's contingency theory of leadership, to be discussed by Dina Reptin, Jemmy Rose Agluba, and Desiree Ann Casimiro.
Hello everyone, my name is Lorena Lubuy Alagia, taking a Bachelor of Elementary Education at Cagayan State University, Pari Campus, a third year student. Bago po ako mag-umpisa, gusto ko lang po sabihin sa inyo, or I would like to tell something about you regarding the leadership effectiveness. But before that, konting trivia lang po tungkol sa pagiging leaders. As I am today, I am the youth leader of our barangay. I am the SK chairperson. And at the same time, nasasabi ko na yung pagiging leader ko is effective through the community, kasi na-apply ko yung pagiging good model sa mga kapwa ko, sa mga katulad kong youth dito sa aming barangay. According to I have my source here po tungkol sa leaders and effectiveness. Definition: people define the concept of leadership effectiveness in many ways. Tama nga naman po. Pagiging leader, hindi lang po nakikita sa isang grupo. It should be nakikita ito sa everyday na act mo o pakikitungo mo sa kapwa mo tao. But according to my resource, indeed, Stagdill in 1974 and Bass in 1981 cataloged and interpreted almost 5,000 studies of the concept, found great variance in its definition. So, sila po yung gumawa ng research para malaman po natin kung gaano ka-effective yung pagiging leader ng isang tao. So, people seem to accept the default position that leadership is simply what leaders do, and that leaders are simply people in position of power over others. So, ito na nga po yung sabi ko kanina as an SK po. Hindi lang po, sabi ko nga na hindi lang po sarili ko, hindi lang po sa akin pinapakita yung pagiging leader, hindi lang po ako yung nagpapakita ng pagiging isang leader sa tao. Kumbaga, lahat tayo may karapatang maging leaders. And then, kung ano po yung nasa puso natin, na alam natin na mas nakakabuti ito, or as long as wala tayong inaapakan na tao, magiging leader tayo, at magiging effective lang ito pag nagawa na po natin yung how to treat other people's equally. Yun po. One's inclusive definition of leadership effectiveness is the successful exercise of personal influence by one or more people that results in accomplishment, share objectives in a way that the personally satisfying that those involved. Sabi ka nga po dito, makikita lang yung leadership effectiveness kung nag-success na tayo sa pagiging influential natin sa kapwa nating tao. Yung pinapakita nating mabuti sa kapwa nating tao ay nagagawa din nila, kasi parang nai-inspire sila sa iyo to do good so that they can apply it for them own self po. Parang kumbaga sa mga kabataan ngayon, kung ano yung nakikita nilang mabuti, mas gusto nilang tularan, pero mostly kasi ngayon yung nakikita nilang alam nilang masama, yun yung ginagawa nila. Sana po ma-erase po sa mga isip nila that we still have the time to change our pagiging leader, or magmumula sa atin yung kabutihan na gusto nating mahangad sa pag-return ng kumbaga giving and Parang yung nagte-thank you ka lang sa mga others, parang ganun po. And then for another definition is for organization in which members of employees are significantly affected by decision and action that takes place and this stands with only representative participants at the best leadership effectiveness is the successful exercise of personal influence attempt by one or more people that results in accomplishing organizational objective congruent with a mission while earning the general approval of their constituencies or stakeholders. This one po yung once po kasi na ikaw sa sarili mo yung sinasabi mo, ay kailangan kong gawin to, ay kailangan kong gumawa ng action para sa ikabubuti ng ganito yung komunidad ko, parang ganun po siya. Hindi lang po magbe-benefits yung sarili ko, pati yung mga nasasakupan ko. So, bago mo masasabing successful ka as a leader, kung effective ka as a leader, sa'yo muna magmumula yung salitang leader. Ikaw yung unang-unang maglilid sa sarili mo kung gagawa ka ng mabuti or gagawa ka ng masama. You're the one who can you're the one who choose your own path, wika nga. Tapos yun nga po, sabi magmumula sa iyo, ipapasa mo sa iba, tapos si iba magpapasa sa iba ng kabutihan para mag-spread yung magiging leadership. Saka mo lang yun makakamit yung leadership effectiveness kung inspiration na-inspire na yung ibang tao sa iyo. That's the end of my own definition about leadership and effectiveness. Sana po na naliwanagan ko kaya or nakapulot po man lang kayo ng konting aral sa aking definition about sa leadership. Thank you.
A part of the inclusive definition of leadership effectiveness is in a way that it is personally satisfying to those involved. Although effective leadership requires the accomplishment of the organization's objectives that serve its mission and vision in a way that it is personally satisfying to those involved. Both the degree to which objectives are accomplished and the satisfaction of those involved are quite subjective. Stakeholder view of leadership effectiveness. About only the statement that can be made about leadership effectiveness with any certainty is more often than not, it is in the eye of the beholder. Let's say in a large organization, the various objectives being served reflect the importance of serving a diverse stakeholders. What appears obvious first is that the objective of a business is to increase the bottom line, or the objective of a political party is to elect candidates. It becomes rather complex and muddled when seen in the midst of either surviving in the marketplace or campaigning for office. So in the case of political parties, we can readily understand the various constituencies and interests that must be convinced, while in the business world, the stakeholders' interests that once included only the investment community and board of directors now include the employees, customers, local communities, and even competitors in some cases when the development of industry is considered. That's why leadership effectiveness at the top of an organization is no longer seen as simply increasing the bottom line or satisfying the priority, because there are equally important, if competing, interests to be served. Similarly, at the other level of organization, leadership is subject to a diversity of objectives. It means that interdepartmental decision-making process, the pursuit of mutual efficiency targets, and development of external relationship with key stakeholders, which are customer and suppliers, are different objectives from those that are created within a work team or serve the interests of one's own department and staff. Considering the large organization and other level of organization, they suggest that leadership effectiveness includes a dimension associated not just only one followers but also with one's colleagues. We also have best practices in leadership effectiveness. In order to identify the best leadership effectiveness practices, people need to decide which intended outcomes will be sought in utilizing leadership as a form of influence. We have to remember that the use of leadership as a form of influence doesn't preclude the use of other influence styles such as boss, manager, partner, or a supervisor. Because this distinction keeps our discussion focused on using these concepts. When we are being boss, a manager, a partner, a dictator, we should recognize it as such, not simply claim that whatever behavior of a person with power exercises is leadership. A leadership influence style focuses on the mobilization of colleagues in a consensual, collective effort to achieve the organization's visions. This mobilization may also involve some real managerial constraints. For example, an organization may not only be effective in implementing their strategy, but also efficient.
Leadership effectiveness is fundamentally the practice of the following principles. Number one, build a collective vision, mission, and set of values that help people focus on their contributions and bring out their best. When we say vision, it provides a clear and effective guide for making decisions, while the mission ensures that all the decisions made are properly aligned with what the organization hopes to achieve. Number two, establish a fearless communication environment that encourages accurate and honest feedback and self-disclosure. Keep a good linkage to everyone so there can be a clear communication and good direction. Number three, make information readily available. Number four, establish trust, respect, and peer-based behavior as the norm. True leaders always practice the 3 R's, which is respect for self, respect for others, and responsibility for all their actions. Number 5, be inclusive and patient. Show concern for each person. The best leader have a high consideration factor. They really care about their people. Number 6, demonstrate resourcefulness and the willingness to learn. Understand the value of listening. Number 7, create an environment that stimulates extraordinary performance. It promotes diversity and work together to achieve more. Evaluating leadership effectiveness as personal. If being effective is important, it should be measured. How do we measure a effective leaders? We have many ways to ascertain performance. We cannot always easily know that our followers are satisfied and that objectives are being met. Regular observable feedback is more likely at the small group level than the institutional level. Where it's not observable, feedback from colleagues, subordinates, or followers, and other stakeholders can be obtained through 360-degree feedback instruments. The concept of 300-degree feedback is to offer individuals the opportunity to solicit meaningful performance feedback from those whom they attempt to influence and those who are related to their achieving organizational goals at all levels. One of the ironies of determining leadership effectiveness in this way is that it points out one of the differences between organizationally based leadership and leadership achieved, say, through the political process in this case of public office or through direct competition for other officials or informal positions of power.
Leadership effectiveness requires paying attention to four-dimensional fields of behavior. In order to paying attention to direct reports, according to Bowers and Stitcher 1996, a leader needs to pay attention to the three other dimensions. The three other dimensions: maintaining managerial goals, emphasis, and clarity. Having ability to provide the necessary support for individuals to do their works and achieve their objectives. And facilitating followers or subordinates interaction with one another create efficiencies, good feelings, and teamwork. These three dimensions that a leader must do in order to create goals and to achieve it successfully. To succeed in addressing these four dimensions, individual must have the following skills and attributes. Under personal, identifying and living up one's and one's organization's values, developing self-confidence or esteem, being committed to keeping agreements, being authentic, communicating truthfully, being able to use creative, holistic, and interdisciplinary thinking, giving and receiving feedback, positive and negative, being able to be self-disclosing, being able to actively listen and emphasize, having a capacity for self-reflection about behavior in interpersonal contexts, honoring and knowing how to stimulate inquiry and dialogues, keeping everyone informed, reducing stress, anxiety, and fear. Under interpersonal, meeting facilitation, being resourceful, creative, and adaptable, offering dispute resolutions through mediation, offering peer supervision and coaching, maintaining process observation, using role clarification and self-assessment, suspending judgment, using team building, including the use of survey, feedback, and action research techniques, maintaining creative problem identification and problem solving, using consensus building methods, mastering half-day or full-day retreats, globalization, diversity, and leadership effectiveness. Successful organizations create the demands for leaderships, and the successful act of leadership requires people to become more open to their whole experience and interpersonal interaction in the whole workplace. Leadership is about intelligence, about pushing back personal limitations and being open to new possibilities for creating a better, more enjoyable, more successful organization. Leadership is about intelligence means relies on your ability to grow, learn, and master new ways to lead people, and there are tenets to consider when boosting it. These are the self-awareness, executive brain functions, and responsibility. According to Lee Kun-hee, the chairman of Samsung Electronics in South Korea, they equate change within groups. We must imitate change within ourselves. This means that you need to know yourself well, your habits, strengths, and shortcomings. In these sayings, in order to lead your group, you must question yourself if you can do better to be a group leader. You must do the first step within yourself so that your group or your members will follow you. According to Rosen 2000, 46 to 48 said, questioning yourself thoroughly is the beginning of change. With the emergence of global economy and diverse workforce, this questioning is essential. Most of all, perhaps, the act of leadership is about building strong positive relationships. The result of leadership effectiveness is ultimately the creation of seamless partnership between customers, employee, and organizational purposes in order to succeed in the market. According to James Fenimore Cooper, indicates that the leadership effectiveness often has to do with how a leader or potential leader is perceived by the others.
Contingency leadership models, closely related to the situational approach, is what has become known as contingency theory. The contingency theory of leadership was proposed by an Austrian psychologist, Fred Edward Fiedler, in his landmark 1964 article, A Contingency Model of Leadership Effectiveness. The contingency theory emphasizes the importance of both the leader's personality and the situation in which the leader operates. Fiedler and his associates studied leaders in a variety of contexts, and their model is based on their research findings. They outlined two styles of leadership, the task-motivated and the relationship-motivated, where task refers to the task accomplishments and the relationship motivation refers to interpersonal relationships. Contingency theory. Contingency theory put forth the idea that the success of a leader hinges on the specific situation at hand. Certain factors come into play that define whether a particular leader or leadership will be effective for the given situation. The factors include the task, personality of the leader, and the composition of the group that is meant to be led. Its basic assumption is that leadership, thus success or failure, thus is situational. This means that leadership is situational. Situational leadership is flexible. It adapts to the existing work environment and the needs of the organization. Situational leadership is not based on a specific skill of the leader. Instead, he or she modifies the style of management to suit the requirements of the organization. Contingency theories. A. Leader's effectiveness is contingent upon how his or her leadership style matches the situation. B. The leader must find out what kind of leadership style and situation he or she thrives in. C. According to Fiedler's contingency model, there is no one best style of leadership. D. A leader is effective when his or her style of leadership fits with the situation.
Different sub-theories that falls under the general contingency umbrella. Fiedler's contingency theory. This theory puts forth the idea that effective leadership hinges not only on the style used by the leader, but also on the control held over the situation. In order to succeed, there must be a strong leader-member relations. Leaders' effectiveness is based on the situation. For example, sports teams frequently experience changes due to team members coming and going. The strengths and weaknesses of the entire team are constantly changing too. Therefore, coaches need to adapt their strategies, approaches, and leadership methods given the variable situations and circumstances at hand. Leaders must also present tasks clearly and with goals and procedures outlined. They need to possess the ability to hand out punishments and rewards as well. This particular theory also fits situations where groups are closely supervised and not team-based. It also uses a least preferred co-workers or LPC scale to help determine the type of worker the leader least likes working with. It also emphasizes the leader's disposition as the main trait that defines the ability to lead. Examples of these are integrity, courage, caring, strong work ethic, and ability to think critically. The next one is situational leadership, more formally called the Hersey-Blanchard situational leadership theory. This model focuses on leadership style and the maturity of those being led. The theory puts forth the idea that leadership styles hinges on four behaviors. First is telling. It is a short-term approach intended to create movement. It aligns with followers who have limited experience, skill performing the task in question and are either insecure or unmotivated to try. Next is selling. It is intended to create buy-in and understanding. It also aligns with followers who have limited experience performing the task but exude both confidence and motivation toward the process of leader-driven skill development. Participating. It is to create alignment. If the follower is developing, he or she might have demonstrated task proficiency but still have some degree of trepidation about performing it on their own. And lastly, delegating. It is to create enhanced task mastery and autonomy. It aligns with followers that have significant experience performing the task at or above expectation in combination with a level of intrinsic motivation that drives their ongoing commitment. Therefore, a successful leader will adopt leadership techniques to fit the maturity level of the group in a question or situational basis. Path-goal theory. This theory combines two popular theories, goal setting and expectancy, into one. It puts forth the idea that effective leaders help those in direction attain their goals. Under this theory, leaders have the responsibility of making sure their subordinates have the support and information required to achieve the goals set forth. Essentially, this theory holds the effective leaders create clear paths to help their subordinates achieve goals, and that they work to remove obstacles that stand in the way. Path-goal theory is designed to explain how leaders can help and followers along paths to their goals by selecting specific behaviors that are best suited to followers' needs and to the situation in which followers are working. Lastly, decision-making theory, also known as the Vroom-Vietton-Jago decision-making model of leadership. It puts forth the idea that effective leaders size up situations, assess them, and then determine how much support the group gives toward the effort, adjusting style of leadership to fit. It is also a theory of how rational individuals should behave under risk and uncertainty. Rational individual means the one who always selects an option that they prefer the most. While contingency models diverge on some points, they all share a common thread. The overlying viewpoint of this theory is that effective leadership is contingent on the situation, task, and people involved.
Fiedler's Contingency Theory of Leadership. Introduction. Fiedler's contingency theory states that your effectiveness as a leader is determined by how well your leadership style matches the situation. 7. Contingency theory's background. Fiedler's contingency theory isn't the only contingency theory. Contingency theory is general theory which says that there is no one using singular way to structure your organization and lead your team. Instead, the best way to do this will be contingent on the situation. So, contingency theories examine how best to run your team or organization given different situations. Another way to say this is that the best leadership style will be contingent on the situation. Fiedler's contingency theory. Fiedler's contingency theory, just like a contingency theorist, states that there is no one best way to lead your team. The best way to lead your team will instead be determined by the situation. It is important to realize that in Fiedler's contingency theory, your leadership style is fixed. You cannot change your style to suit the situation. Instead, you must put leaders onto situations that match their style. The next presenters will be Gemma Saglova, that she will be discussing the steps in using Fiedler's contingency model of leadership, followed by Desiree and Casimiro about the advantages and disadvantages.
Hi everyone, I am Gemma Spiagluba, B.Ed 3, and I will be discussing the steps in using the Fiedler's contingency leadership model. But before that, I just want to introduce the two important factors that we'll be needing in performing the steps. Number one is the leadership style, and number two is the situational favorableness. Leadership style determines whether the leader is a task-oriented leader or a relationship-oriented leader through using the LPC scale or least preferred co-worker scale. Task-oriented leader is good at organizing teams and projects, getting things done, and relationship-oriented leader is building a good relationship and managing conflict to get things done. While the situational favorableness, this is determined by how much control over the situation you have as a leader. Determining the situational favorableness is done by examining the three important factors. Number one is the leader-member relations, task structure, and position power. Leader-member relations is a factor that measures how much your team trusts you. The greater the task, the higher the favorableness you have. Number two is the task structure. This factor measures the tasks they need to perform. Are tasks clear and precise or vague? Vague tasks decreases the favorableness of the situation, and concrete and clear tasks increases it. Number three is the position power, refers to the authority of a leader. The leader can punish or reward his or her subordinate. Having more power increases the situational favorableness. Now that we are familiar with this, let's move on to the steps in using the Fiedler's contingency model of leadership. Number one step is identify your leadership style. Think of a person whom you least working with, and then he or she will rate your experience with this person. So these are the criteria. So let's assume that I am the one who's rating my leader. So I will rate the descriptions from 1 to 8, and I will rate each and every parameter. And the total score is 99. Now we are going to determine whether the leader is a task-oriented leader or a relationship-oriented leader. Now, the question is, how are we going to determine? If the score is 73 and above, it indicates that you are a relationship-oriented leader. And if the score is 54 and below, you are a task-oriented leader. And if the score is between 55 to 72, it is a mixture of both. Since the score is 99, therefore, you are a relationship-oriented leader. Step 2 is defining the situation. So here are the questions that need to be answered. Are leader-member relations good or poor? Are tasks clear or vague? Is authority low or high? Step 3. Find the right leadership style. Putting all the answers from step 2 will determine if you are favorable, moderate, or unfavorable as a leader. So my answer in number 1, leader-member relations, is that poor. In task structure, my answer is clear. And in position power, my answer is high. So here is a table from Fiedler. Leader-member relations, task structured, leader positions power, and most effective power. My answer in leader-member relations is poor. In task structured, my answer is structured. Leader's position power is weak, so the most effective power is high LPC. Therefore, the leader is favorable.
The advantage of Fiedler contingency theory of leadership are: it provides a simple rule of thumb for identity which leaders are best for which situation. Unlike many other leadership theory, it takes the situation into account in determining the effectiveness of a leader. Both the LPC and the situational factor are easy to measure. Advantage of Fiedler contingency of leadership are: it's not flexible at all. If your leadership style doesn't match the situation, that it game over. You need to be replaced. There is nothing you can do to change the situation. The LPC scale is a subjective, and so it possible incorrectly assess your own leadership style. If you happen to fall in the middle of the LPC scale, then there is no guidance as to which kind of leader you might be. Your assessment of the situation is subjective. This means you may incorrectly assess the situation, and consequently, you may incorrectly determine
what kind of leader is required.